This is Elder.
And tomorrow is going to be the funeral of Shimon Peres. I don't like to do stories that everybody else does, and there's been lots and lots of obituaries for Peres all over the place that you can read. And, you know, some of them are better than others. The New York Times, I had noticed, used it as an occasion to rewrite some history, and I talked about that in the blog. They ended up changing it a little bit, made it a little bit better. But it was, you know, there's stuff that's out there, and everybody knows the basics that he became an incredibly young, you know, defense minister, or actually not defense minister, but he essentially headed Israel's defense at the age of 29. He was the architect of Israel's nuclear power program, and of course that he was one of the people behind the Oslo Accords, and that's what mostly everybody's talking about. But there's a lot of other stuff that he did, and it's really an incredible life that he had, and any one of the things that he did by itself is really very noteworthy. To imagine that he managed to get all this stuff done and that he was so active up until his stroke a couple of weeks ago is remarkable.
Extremely remarkable.
So what I want to do is talk about a little bit about the things that go a little bit beyond his Wikipedia page, a little bit beyond the obituaries. One was an article I just saw recently, just like a couple of hours ago, in, of all places, CBS Market Watch, saying that his greatest achievement, it wasn't Oslo, it wasn't anything like that, it was transforming Israel's economy. And I didn't know this story. But I do remember in the mid-'80s, Israel's inflation was literally over 400%.
Yeah, it was pretty high.
It was unbelievable. It was like, and everybody was trying, how can the country live this way? It was telling you the income taxes were so high, and it was just nuts. And over here he talks about, he says inflation was 415%, foreign currency reserves were dwindling so fast, by the summer of 85, the Jewish state was losing the ability to buy even one barrel of oil. And Peres, who was the prime minister at the time, just took a team of experts. He took a team of economists. He asked for their analysis. He broke them into smaller groups, gave them assignments, and then he came up with a plan with them. Then he did an all-night meeting on the cabinet, and he said, nobody's leaving this room until we come up with a solution, until the business is done. He was 62 years old then. He stayed awake, even though the ministers were complaining that they were asleep, and he just imposed an incredible solution on everybody on both sides of the aisle, or actually there's more than two aisles, on for him, for his opposition within his party. They did a 20% budget cut in the military, slashed subsidies. He did stuff against the unions. He stopped the government from printing money to finance deficits. He moved monetary policy to the Bank of Israel from the Treasury. He did all of this stuff like in no time, and that is one of the major drivers for Israel's economic renaissance.
That's fabulous.
It's incredible, and it's really what started Israel on the road from socialism to capitalism to real privatization. I mean, Netanyahu has done a lot with that as well.
Yeah, but I was going to say, too, what he has done, it's really remarkable. It really is. And it's something extremely special.
It is. And now Israel is one of the strongest economies in the world, all because of this one all-nighter that he put together.
I know. Isn't that pretty incredible what one person can do?
It really is. So that was very cool. And then again, he said it's touched off Israel's privatization. The other thing that's mentioned in this article is Israel was trying to finance its own fighter jet. The Levi. It was a very expensive thing. A lot of engineers were there, and he scuttled the program. He said, listen, it's not, if it can't pay for itself, we're not going to do it. And there was a lot of criticism for him, and there was a lot of criticism for him throughout his life. But everybody was afraid all the engineers would leave Israel, but instead, they all started their own companies. Mm-hmm. That was like the beginning of the startup nation, was actually in the mid-'80s, according to this article. So it was very, very interesting. But that's okay, so that's one thing. There's here's something, and I posted this on my on Twitter. During the 2009 Davos Forum, Turkey's Erdogan, gave a speech in which he was attacking Israel, and Peres came back without. Well, he had some notes, but essentially without any
prompting or anything.
Without any prompting, he wrote a 20-minute rebuttal to Erdogan that was just amazing. I see other people are on the internet and then saying that Erdogan then answered back and that Perez had nothing to say. Erdogan actually was so angry.
Yeah, that he left the stage, right?
He walked off the stage. But here's just a section of it, and I could just keep going. I have to trust myself to actually close this at time. But I'm going to listen to a minute or two, or we're going to play a minute or two of what Perez said to answer Erdogan, and he's looking at Erdogan as he says this.
Israel left Gaza completely, no occupation. We took out all of our soldiers from Gaza, all our civilians. People are talking about settlements. We took out from Gaza all the settlements and all the settlers, 15,000 of them. Nobody forced us. It was our own choice. We have had to mobilize 45,000 policemen to bring them back home at the cost of $2.5 billion. I want to understand, why did they fight rockets against us? What for? There was not any siege against Gaza. All the passages were open. Not only that, we participated in investing money in Gaza to develop an agriculture. We have a Peres Center. We ourselves put in $20 million, sorry, to build greenhouses, to develop strawberries, the export of strawberries, excellent strawberries, flowers. Jimmy Wolfson, who was a representative of the quartet, took from his own pocket $5 million also to participate in it. They destroyed it. Why? They bombed all the passages. Why? Why did they fire at us? What did they want? We didn't occupy. There was never a day of starvation in Gaza.
So really powerful, and this is
Extremely powerful.
And Erdogan is extremely uncomfortable during all of this, but Perez is saying everything accurately. He may have been liberal, he may have been left side, but he defended Israel.
And also, it's incredible when you have somebody who stands up and takes the stand and actually shows what happened.
Yeah,
it's actually extremely well done, and he did a nice job.
He did great. Something else that people don't know about Perez, and I just found out about tonight, is he was a poet. In February of this year, he wrote a poem for China, and it was turned into a song. He called it Chinese Melody. It was turned into a song in Chinese. Here's a video of it, of a part of the song which it actually has Israelis singing in Chinese for this for the celebration of China. Goes on and on, but
that's pretty beautiful.
But he wrote this. He was 92, 93 when he wrote this song.
I would say that's what I'd call a very, very, very special man.
Yeah, that's it's unreal. There was another. Here's just a short thing. There was Time Magazine had 10 questions for Shimon Peres. This is in 2012, so we'll play a short section of that.
I understand you're about to go on Facebook.
Yes.
Now, you do know that you have to limit your time on Facebook. It gets to be very much of a time suck. And I imagine you have better things to do. Do you have a plan? Are you just going to do 5 minutes a day, or?
I think that peace should be done not only among governments, but among people. It was impossible before the Facebook. And today
really? You think before Facebook, peace was impossible?
Peace among people. Today, young people, old people can converse directly without the intermediary of the government. And we started already. We have an internet that enables Arab youngsters and Israeli youngsters to discuss peace directly. We have already 60,000 members. And it's refreshing because all governments today have to listen to the people. To the streets or to the polls, doesn't matter. The politicians today are conditioned by the people more than the people are being governed by the politicians.
Where do you stand in the debate?
So that was, I mean, and this is so, when people talk about, Shimon Peres he went on Snapchat. That was like his last tweet was talking about him going on Snapchat.
I know, that's pretty incredible, right?
doing, but it wasn't shtick.
I know, he actually really was doing it.
But it wasn't just that he was doing it, is that he felt that this was the way, that this is super important for the world, that everybody gets on, because he's understanding the social underpinnings of social media. He's saying, since Facebook exists, the people are now the ones in charge.
I think we need to make a hashtag for him.
Yeah, the governments have to listen to the people now, and that's a fundamental change, because we've seen what happened in Arab governments up until the 90s and the 2000s.
That's the hashtag.
Yeah,
Governments have to listen to people now.
It's a long hashtag.
I know, but the thing is that it actually fits.
But it's the
honor Shimon Peres.
Right, but it's like he was like saying, listen, the world has fundamentally changed now, and this is what happened. This is the reason for the Arab Spring. This is and he's saying this is why he has to be on Facebook, because this is what has to be done. The people are now this is it has democratized the world. Far more than anything else. The internet has done it, and he noticed that.
I think that everybody can take a lesson from that, because then it just means is that whatever industry they're in, they're going to actually have to follow up. And he was 90-something years old, and he was able to do it.
Absolutely.
It's pretty incredible.
It is. And finally, Tablet magazine today published a final interview with Peres. And it's a fairly long one, and it's worth looking at. But I just wanted to highlight something that he said, and it was really... And he mentioned it throughout, but it was really very good. He's talking about when he first went to visit China. It says that they knew that he went to agriculture school. They showed them their agriculture, and he's like saying, no, it's very primitive. So Israel worked with China, and he said, here are seeds that actually triples the yield of wheat that you have. And they said now, because he was doing that and things like that, the Chinese they still ask for advice. And he said, listen, you're almost as big as America economically right now. You're becoming very powerful, but you have to decide, either be a giver or a taker. The biggest mistake is if you use the power to take. The greatest wisdom is if you give. And he goes on with that. Then he talks about Putin. And he says, and he tells Putin the same sort of thing. He says that, listen, America's going to win no matter what you do. And Putin asks, he says, and then he jokes, he says, because they're lucky and you're not. But then he says, the reason is that America has America cares and it gives. It's like he said, he told them, you're behaving like a Tsar is what he said. He told Putin. He said, the Tsars, developed two cities, St. Petersburg and Moscow, but the rest of Russia, they didn't care about. He said, your people are dying. You don't give them life. You think they'll forgive you? He says, why is America great? Because they are givers. Why is Europe in trouble? Because they are takers. America's giving, they think people think it's because they're generous. I think it's because they're wise. If you give, you create friends. The most beneficial investment is making friends. He talks about America giving during the Marshall Plan. It was a huge amount of America's GNP, and after World War II, they helped rebuild Europe with the Marshall Plan. This is just giving. They were not expecting anything back. And what happened to Europe? Europe had every European country had an empire, and the people, and they were taking, the whole point of the empire was taking from the countries in, Africa or wherever, and those people, ended up losing everything because they were taking instead of giving.
Big lesson here, don't you think?
It's an amazing lesson. He says, believe me, he says, I told Putin, enemies and animosity are the greatest waste in life. You are investing in a foolish thing. And at the very end of the interview, he reiterates it. He goes a little bit more. He says, the way to peace is not war and not negotiation, it's innovation. To be great in science, you don't have to go to war. You could be a small country in size and a great country in content. And even today, this option exists. And I believe in it. It's difficult, it may take time, but everything is difficult. I've spent my entire life as a dreamer, and I'm an optimist. I choose to be an optimist. I think to deal with the past is a waste of time. You can't change it anyway. People say you won't repeat the same mistakes, so you'll make new ones. But he says, the past doesn't need the future doesn't need the past. Better to dream than to remember.
Well, I guess that means that everybody out there better start dreaming and dreaming big.
Yeah.
Let's make peace, let's make happiness, and let's make sure that we remember him.
It's truly amazing that, again, this is like really like a week before his stroke. He was still saying this sort of stuff, and
What a special man he was.
and he was trying to think about what he can do to impact the world. You know, whether you agree or disagree with him, and there's certainly plenty of things I disagreed with on him, but this is a remarkable, remarkable man.
Again, we should only remember the great things and the great changes that happened to the world because of this man.
Very good. For now, and in the memory of Shimon Peres, I'm Elder,
And I'm Mrs. Elder.
and we will talk to you next time. And we probably won't talk to you until after Rosh Hashanah. So for everybody, have a Kativa v'Chatima Tova.
Chassid v'chasima tova. I'll do it the other way, okay?
We'll work on it.
As I wink.
Shana Tova.
Shana to everybody.
And-
Enjoy, and please stay tuned and let us know your feedback. And always please join us in helping us make the change in the world ourselves. Okay? And because we need you too.
Thank you very much.